Oh, good. That's the Watchman. A powerful voice there. Pleasant evening. What time is it where you're at?
It's actually 2:46 a.m.
2:46 a.m. Just give the viewers an idea of where exactly you are at this point.
I'm in Kampala, Uganda. Africa.
Thank you so much. And he is linking with us. And for those of you who know Watchman, you would know the fact that he was a former police officer. He didn't get the sort of academic inclinations, but he made his way to law school. And he's, of course, working outside the country in a very, very important position. And we want to thank you so much for your service. I know you've been looking on and weighing in. We get your voice notes. The National Security Minister, Fitzgerald Hayde, says he is unhappy that with the 663 murders in the period September 2022 to 2023, the percentage of suspects and persons arrested and charged for murders was 16%. Basically, he is not happy with the detection rate. What say you?
I agree with him fully. And I think that anyone who is interested in addressing justice in the society will not be happy with such a detection rate. Even the Commissioner of Police, I'm sure she herself is not happy with that. But there are reasons why the detection rate is low, and some of it does not always have to do with the police, but the police is responsible for ensuring that persons are brought to justice. And if only 16% is detected, and that detection rate doesn't necessarily mean a conviction rate, which might be lower for other reasons, then there's a serious problem in the country.
Yeah, well, it has to be. I mean, of course, Mr. Hines also said that the police are consistently indicating that the systems that they're working they're trying to improve on the system.
Hello, you're going low. I'm not hearing.
Okay. He did mention that they are consistently, of course, trying to better the system to get better results. But I mean, at the end of it all, I mean, are these the same things that are being tried over and over? Can you hear me?
Sorry.
Go
ahead. Sorry. You saying?
Yeah. He did. Repeat? Yes. The minister did, of course, highlight that they are trying as best as possible to improve the system, but it makes you wonder if it is that they're the same things that they're doing over and over and expecting different results.
Well, I can't say whether that is true or not, because I'm not inside the workings of the police service. But let us deal with the reality. The problem in the country is that 16%, is it with respect to all crimes or mainly with respect to murders?
Mainly to murders.
Mainly with respect to, right. And that is the problem that the country is facing, because it is the most serious crime. You know, I'm not counting treason or things like that, but in terms of people's fear in the society, murder is the most serious crime, and that is the one that is most affected. And the problems with our crime in the country, it is guns. And that breeds everything else, because the low detection rate, all of it comes in. Look, in the old days when someone chopped someone with a machete, a cutlass, and killed them, it's a crime that operates or takes place in close quarters. And therefore, you may find more evidence on the scene for those types of murders. But when people have automatic and semi-automatic firearms that they can shoot you from a distance, it makes it more difficult to collect scientific evidence or other evidence that will assist you in terms of solving the crime. And then guns put a fear into the population, so enough to even talk about what they see or what they hear and what they know. And until we have addressed gun violence and gun crimes and gun possession, illegal gun possession in the country, nothing will change.
Yeah, and I want to agree with you on that. As far as evidence recovery is a very, very sensitive issue and is one that needs to be dealt with in a professional way in order to deal with some of these things that are taking place. And of course, securing the borders. We've been hearing that time and time again, securing the borders. But I mean, how committed should a government be to make sure that these borders are not as porous as what we're seeing today?
Well, our border will always be porous. Let us be brutally honest and frank here. We are a small country next to large countries, Venezuela and by extension Colombia and the rest, where we're surrounded by water. Therefore, unless we have as much money as very, very rich countries to afford 24-hour surveillance, detection, and make Trinidad and Tobago almost like a prison to come into, it will be difficult, if not impossible, for us to stop guns coming into the country that follow the drug trade or follow illegal immigrants and other refugee types who constantly find their way into the country. So what are you going to do? You have to then have a system whereby every movement is monitored, which is impossible, even if you put cameras everywhere. The reality is that since you cannot stop people coming into the borders, then prohibited weapons and contraband, then what you have to do is to make it in such a way that people know if they get caught, they will die or die in prison, one way or the other. That is what other countries have done. We like to talk about Singapore, but you can't drop a chewing gum on the street in Singapore without getting a fine.
So true.
You cannot not flush a public toilet without getting a fine. And if you get caught with firearms in that country, then you're very likely to face long stretches of imposed imprisonment. We have to get to mandatory sentences for gun-related crimes.
I agree.
Longer and longer sentences, which may require us to have some change of laws, and that would mean that the opposition will have to join hands with the government in order to save the country. Because you can't hope that you will sit on the other side and when it fails, you take over and it will get any better. It will not. It will get worse. And the only time they will move really in a direction of trying to save the country is when their children, when their friends, their family become affected. And it's going to happen more and more. With the home invasions, with collateral damage, or people just frightening jurors, frightening witnesses, and threatening them not to talk.
You're so correct. You're so correct on that. Let me ask you as well. There's going to be rogue elements in every organization. Let's be real about that. But currently, as we speak, 6 police officers earlier this week were detained by officers of the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service Professional Standards Bureau, which of course equates to internal affairs in North America. That's what we have here. At the same time, you also have 6 officers who are before the court in dealing in a triple murder trial. How do you arrest this situation? No pun intended, but how do you deal with this situation as far as those officers who definitely, because it seems to be a culture that you get in, you have this job security, perhaps this may not have been your first choice, but then you get there with some bad eggs and these things just start to breed. How do you nip that in the bud quickly?
Okay, let me start by saying that everyone is innocent until proven guilty in a court of law. And the fact that officers have been charged or arrested for offenses could mean that the system of detecting rogue cops, as we say, is working. The problem is that the more and more rogue cops you arrest, or you prosecute, or you convict, creates and increase the public perception that things are rotten in the barrel of apples. So what we need to do is to go back and look at our systems in terms, you just mentioned something, yes, there is job security, but it does not help if when officers commit certain offenses that they are not disciplined seriously to begin with or dismissed, including dismissal. I think there's a rush to the court for every offense to be serviced. It takes 5 years or 10 years in some cases for these cases to even be tried. Witnesses die, evidence gets lost, and people lose their memories. And then the officer might be guilty, and then they get off because the case does not end well for the state, and they come back into the system.
Yeah.
What we have to do is to have a process by which when officers are caught for certain offenses, they can be dealt with and dismissed even if they are facing a criminal offense. So, for example, there are certain policies that if you do and you bring the service in the district court, we try you for that departmentally on a balance of probabilities. And if you're found guilty of that, it has nothing to do with the murder that you might allege to have committed or the robbery or some other crime. But if, for example, you were supposed to be in Port of Spain and you get caught in San Fernando with a police vehicle and that is a breach of the regulations, then that should be dealt with seriously enough and severely enough so by the time that person comes to court, they are no longer police officers. That's what they do in the United States and in other countries.
Now, we got to stick a pin in that, Dr. Hayde. I want to thank you so much. I know I want you to get some rest because we're going to have a part 2 to this interview. We'll be looking at the culture as far as the vacation time, vacation leave, because, many of these officers, they take pre-retirement only to prepare themselves to enter the private sector as some executive in a security guard company or something. So I want us to look at that and see how it is that affects their performance when it comes to this culture of taking this leave and benefiting. So,
well, I would like to discuss vocationally because it's a technical area.
All right.
And I was just talking to another retired senior officer about it. So that is a topic in itself.
All right. And I guarantee you,
from the crime issue.
I guarantee you in the month of December, we will discuss that. So I will have you back on. Get some rest. Thank you so much again. As always, it's always good to have you on and to give us from your perspective. Best of luck to you and your entire team, and do keep up the good work.
Thank you very much,
Thank
sir.
you.